What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new. I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to all of the animated shorts. I decided it was about time for me to get back to going through all of the old content of the games and giving my thoughts on them. I've done videos on some of these before already, but there's quite a few that I haven't yet, so I just thought I might as well give my thoughts on them. With that, feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and let's get into it, starting with A Flash. This one was absurd when we first got it. It's still fucking amazing. The music is great. I love how we pull out through that sword, or that blade. I can't believe this was like our first real look at Jingliu.
Will the knights protect the Xianzhou?
Draw. Yes, master. As clouds that cover the heavens. Will the knights protect?
I love the layering of the voices there of child Jingyuan and present day Jingyuan, or still past, but you know, present to this. I love the constant transitioning back and forth between the past and the present.
Yes, master!
The fighting is so good.
Doesn't recognize us.
So it is with the Mara strike. To become stricken with Mara is to be a long-life species. If I too
I like that they give a very
hereafter,
brief explanation of Mara and that it's gonna happen to her someday, hence what's going on in the present.
No sense of time, humanity waiting. A serious case. You should leave, Jingyuan. Jingliu is already.
And right about here, we're gonna get to just my absolute favorite part of the entire animated short. The building of the music. The sound design is amazing. Not like anything too crazy, but it just works really well. That moment of struggle. And then just the rise.
Master. Your gift of instruction. I will pay this strike.
God.
9,996, 9,997, 9,998.
And then the cycle repeats.
9,999, 10,000.
A Cloud Knight must never let slip their weapon.
He repeats the line of his master.
Though, you'll have to grow a little taller before the knights will have you.
I want to be like you, General. I want to be a famous Xianzhou legend.
You do. It is a difficult road.
But that's the road you took, right, General?
This fucking pauses everything to me. This moment of silence, where he simply doesn't answer, he just doesn't answer,
Seeing as you're so
and
full of fighting spirit,
just lets that stay like settled
I won't hold
there.
back.
Jesus. Okay. For the longest time, this was the peak of anything they had released, in my opinion, for promotional material for Star Rail. As this was at a point where we weren't getting animated shorts for Genshin, and this was the first one for Star Rail, and we were still figuring out what the deal with Star Rail was, what vibe it was really going for. It was in the early months of the game, and this really set the tone, and honestly, in a way, probably overhyped the Xianzhou to a degree, but I absolutely am in love with pretty much everything in this short, as it really is just focused on giving us this singular moment that then branches out into the past and future that is at the core of what I feel is the best parts of the Xianzhou storyline, at least the initial storyline. The newer stuff is really solid in my mind, but also has its own ties to this. But to get into the analysis, we open with the sound of wind and this decimated structure. It looks like a shrine or temple of some kind that is in ruin, floating in this non-existent space. It's unclear where we are. And as we begin to pull out from it, the sound of a flute comes in that has this incredibly sad and melancholic tone to it, perfectly fitting the vibe of what's going on here. And as we pull out farther, it's revealed that we're merely looking at the reflection in a frozen blade held by a frozen Cloud Knight. And it shifts to the blade of Jingliu, looking over this crowd of frozen soldiers, people she has killed and frozen. We pan up the blade to her back, and then look over her shoulder to see approaching is the one unfrozen soldier, Jing Yuan. When this first came out, we knew much less of this lore. At least in my experience, I didn't know who Jingliu was at all. And so with that, the story of this was able to unfold through the short. But even looking at this, knowing what's going on here, this is the initial engagement of student and master. The master having now broken their oaths, having gone insane, and lashing out at everyone around them. And the student who has now been forced to be the one person who has any chance of stopping them. He approaches, no hesitance in his step, but we know from later on that he's not ready yet to cut her down. He will be, but he isn't. Not yet. And as he approaches, we cut to him specifically, zooming in, and then we get this shot, which is just fucking amazing. We're down low on the ground, looking up at Jingliu. Despite being smaller in this frame than Jingyuan, his blade being bigger than her in this shot, she still has this looming presence. She's far above him, there's this eerie light behind her, and she's distant. We can't make out any of her expression. We haven't seen her face yet. We've seen Jingyuan's face here just a moment prior to that shot, and therefore we can get a sense of his humanity and his emotions and such. Here he has a fairly neutral expression, but it is very much not a passive or casual expression. It is much more neutral in the sense of it is a restrained expression. He isn't letting his various emotions about this scenario reach his face, his expression yet. But even then, we can see his face here, where we can't in this shot of Jingliu. His enemy is unknown. We do not know what she is capable of or what she may do. We just know that this standoff has begun and a fight's about to happen. We once again get his face, a similar expression, and now we get her expression. Dead red eyes, no light in them. Her entire expression cast in darkness. A slight malicious smile on her face. Harsh light across her face. All of this is painting her as something that is, at the very least, insane, if not inhuman. Something cruel. But as we finally get her expression and see this darkness, it fades into the past as she speaks, and we can see the difference. She's still starkly lit with bright light on one side of her face and the rest shaded, but it's not as deep a darkness, and there's light in her eyes. It's still the same shade of red, but she has light in the eyes. We can see her pupils. Her expression is more stern rather than that eerie, slight smirk, as she says, "Heed this oath. As clouds that cover the heavens, will the knights protect the Xianzhou." At which point she draws her blade, pointing it up and forward, as we get a shot now of young Jingyuan. She says, "Draw," signaling him to follow in her action. And he says, "Yes, master," immediately signifying their relationship, student and master, trained from a young age in the way of the blade. And it's here that we get the shift back to the current battle, as we get the perspective shot of him drawing his sword as a child. repeating the oath that his master spoke to him. And as he does, his adult voice fades in to take over the oath. And so does the perspective shift to the present, with him holding his blade. And as he points it forward, stating the oath that his master gave onto him, showing that he is still resolute in that oath, we see that his blade is pointed up and forward at her. And at this point, enough can be understood about the nature of this to see the tragedy in it. This is the person who trained Jing Yuan and gave him the oaths he lives by, but now he is forced to point his blade at her and call out this oath to her. Perhaps as a statement of this is what he stands by and he will not allow the things she has done to go unpunished, or perhaps, probably both of these in fact, it is also a calling out to his master, a repeating of the words that she gave to him to see if she's still in there, if she will realize what she has done and try to return back to her oath as well. But as we move up to her expression, she still is carrying that cold, slight smile, the darkness in her eyes. As she dashes forward and the battle begins, we get these amazing perspective shots, so much from Jing Yuan's perspective. Jing Liu is just this oppressive force as she just streams between strikes. He's entirely on the defensive. He is not prepared mentally to fight her. She has the advantage in every way currently. He may have just tried to steel himself with his oath, but that was not enough. And as the battle rages, he thinks back to when he was first trained, swinging his blade tirelessly under the sun as his master instills wisdom in him, saying, "Hold firm. A Cloud Knight must never slip their weapon, nor let slacken their form." And once again, he says, "Yes, master," taking in the wisdom of his master and her teachings. And with this swing of the blade, we shift back to the battle as he stumbles back, attempts to fight, but is incapable of landing any hits. But he is trying to hit her now. Only in this moment where she nearly hits him and he can see his own reflection in her blade do we get this astonished look on his face. Perhaps it's really only here that he realizes that her compassion for him is gone. She is going for kill blows. His old master is not here anymore, or at the very least, if she is still there, she has been changed beyond what is recoverable. This is the first step to him being able to realize what he needs to do. But from that, we shift back to another moment. Once again, him thinking of the past in this battle. A Mara-struck soldier, an abomination of the abundance. Someone who clearly has wreaked some havoc. Someone who they knew. As he says, he doesn't recognize us. And I have to say, I really love the subtle differences in the voice of Jing Yuan here, given that he is younger here. It's still during his training, but he's still an adolescent. There's a certain amount of the boldness and deepness of his voice that isn't there yet, which is just amazing voice acting. I love it. But as his voice is shaking and he doesn't know what to do against a fallen friend, someone who has been strucken with Mara, Jing Liu holds firm. She says, "So it is with the Mara struck." And without hesitation, she moves forward and cuts them down, as she asserts to Jing Yuan, "To become stricken with Mara is to be a long-lived species. If I too become stricken in times hereafter, you must not hold back." Once again, instilling her wisdom in him, saying that there is no coming back once you have been struck by Mara, and the best thing you can do for them, even if you cared for them, is to not hold back, is to strike them down, to end their suffering and the suffering they instill in others. Which, I will admit, is rather ironic, given the way that her character ends up going. She ends up surviving. She ends up, in a certain way, surviving the Mara, being in a state that she can be civil and be around others. But in many ways, she also is suffering. So, to a certain point of view, her words here still hold true. And once again, we end this scene of the past with him saying, "Yes, master." This time without the resolve in his voice. He clearly hears her words, but they haven't properly been instilled in him in this moment. It's only in this fight against his master where that will finally become the case. But before we return to that fight, we get a glimpse of Jing Liu in the moments of her becoming Mara-struck. We hear her suffering alone here, as we get this mysterious layered voice, which I'm very curious if that's meant to be any specific character or characters that we will eventually meet or not. But regardless, we get the words, "No sense of time, humanity waning, a serious case. You should leave, Jing Yuan. Jing Liu is all ready." And before they can finish that word, ice shoots out from Jing Liu, covering the scene. Clearly, this is people who are recognizing what is occurring here and wish to protect Jing Yuan from this, not forcing him to be the one to strike down his master. In all likelihood, this is moments before the scene we see in front of us in the battle. She likely here shoots out this ice and begins to cut down those around her, leaving Jingyuan to be forced to be the one to fight her. And it's in this moment that he snaps back to reality in time to see a major strike coming down from Jingliu at him. He's able to block it, but it sends him flying. He manages to not stumble over or anything, but he was sent flying by that blow. He's being sent reeling by this battle. And we get this incredibly anime moment here, as the blow was strong enough that though he blocked it, the structure behind him was not saved. And in this dust, looking down at the ground, recovering, Jingliu slowly approaches. Now we don't even see her eyes, as she coldly approaches. And as he stares at her and realizes that she isn't in there anymore, with this pained look on his face, he takes a moment to close his eyes as he struggles to come to terms with this. His expression shaking for a moment, before he opens his eyes and becomes resolute in what he must do. There is not hesitation in him anymore. There's regret and sadness, but not hesitation, as he lets loose his power and says, "Farewell, master. Your gift of instruction I repay in this strike," holding nothing back. And with this strike, we get this shot of the stars, a purple and blue star shining out more than anything. And I find an interesting detail here that obviously these two stars represent the two of them. Purple being Jingyuan and blue being Jingliu. But neither goes out in this moment. Despite this being the felling blow that defeats Jingliu, it does not go out. And that always interested me for a while, but I feel like it makes sense given that she does not truly die here. She survives this. Her story has not ended, and therefore her star does not go out. But then we get this strong, resolute cry coming with his blow, as we then get her expression, an expression of astonishment. She doesn't even try to dodge the attack, as in this moment, her mouth curves up into a small smile as she fades away. Perhaps this being the moment that brings her back to her sanity right before she is defeated here. Perhaps it is in the resolve of Jinyuan's oath that he stands firm even against his own master, that she finally is able to recognize what is going on. Perhaps this was the first step of her returning to herself, at least in the state that she is later on. But regardless, for now, she is blown away by this blast, and we do not get left to see the aftermath. We move to a day in the future, a day in the present. We hear the voice of Yangqing as he calls out the number of how many swings he has done, this entire shot mirroring the one from before of Jingyuan and Jingliu, and to mirror it even further, once he reaches 10,000, Jingyuan repeats the line that his master said to him: "A Cloud Knight must never slip their weapon, nor let slacken their form." But he adds his own flavor to it at the end, saying, "Though you'll have to grow a little taller before the knights will have you," just adding a little bit of his playfulness to it, at which point Yangqing asserts that he wants to be like the general. He wants to be a famous Xianzhou legend. He just laughs, says, "You do? The difficult road." As I was mentioning in the initial viewing, Yangqing retorts saying, "But that's the road you took, right, General?" And we just hold on that, as his shoulders lower a little bit. Jingyuan thinks about that path, the struggles he's had, and perhaps in this moment is thinking about the fact that perhaps someday that same path will lead the two of them to a battle of their own, where Jingyuan has become Mara-struck and Yangqing must defeat him. But he does not let himself stay on that thought for too long, and his expression never changes, as he simply redirects the conversation, saying, "Seeing as you're so full of fighting spirit," and interestingly enough, this is a weird little thing, but though it's sort of implied what he means there is actually meant to be a second half to that line that is in, like, every other language, but for some reason it isn't in this one, and I'm curious why that is, but it's essentially, "Why don't we go a few rounds," or something along those lines. At which point, Yangqing goes, "Yeah, I won't hold back," as they prepare to spar. But that is a flash. An amazing animated short. All of them are amazing, so I can't reasonably say that this is the best one, but it easily is one of my favorites just because it was the first, and it strikes at this incredibly deeply melancholic feeling of this cycle of student and the master falling to darkness only for the student to defeat them, and then continue the cycle with a student of their own. And I love it, but I'll end it there for the sake of brevity and move on to the next one. Alright, now we have Ichor of Two Dragons, another full animated short, this one evidently following Dan Heng. This one's very interesting and I like it quite a bit, but something about it unfortunately is not quite as good as the others. I don't know why, but it's still really good. It's still amazing, but it definitely, of the full animated shorts, is lower in my rankings, I'd say, but let's get into it to see what I mean by that. It's also one of the longer ones.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, of course, we start with the Cloud Quintet.
Found me, sing. You too, Embargo Lune. Let's see you smile.
Let them off the hook.
Evidently, Don Hung is reminiscing about this.
Want a rematch? I'm always available.
But as he steps away, darkness overcomes the land, and he is suddenly over the water, surrounded by it,
How long?
as Dun Feng,
Keep running.
a spirit of the past, begins to question him.
I have to leave. Leave? You'll find no refuge among the stars.
I find the framing of this very interesting for a variety of reasons I'll get into, but
Succession is as eternal and unyielding as the ancient sea. That past is yours. No, you are my reincarnation. A mirror image. A past life sin must be repaid in this one. Not you! For those who defy our creed and break the succession, death is the only redemption.
there is some just really great animation here with like this fighting and stuff.
A criminal who shows no sign of remorse deserves no mercy. You have no
The music is also fucking amazing. And then as he sinks into the dark water, we get
In light of
a little
past
bit of
merit, the
detail.
sentence shall be commuted to molting rebirth and eternal banishment.
Why did you take this path?
Hand over the transmutation arcanum and the preceptors will spare your life.
It's all because of you.
But then, where the past pulls him down into the depths,
Starting today,
these
no one
echoes
at the
of the
Express
present, of his current life,
Don Hung, I'm clocking off for now.
bubble up towards the surface.
Attention! The Express is about to make the jump.
And then the music builds. And it begins swimming up.
You're right. You are my past. But you won't follow me into my future!
That feels so fucking good.
I will blaze a path of my own! And it's futile!
I love that he just overtakes the dragon as his own. And then the darkness is gone.
Go then. Leave. And don't look back.
And the past fades away.
Don Hung, quit daydreaming. Give me a smile. Another one. Say cheese.
I love how
Are you
just
alright?
done with everything he always is.
Just reminiscing.
Huh? Reminiscing? About what? Come on, tell me!
Let him be, Marge.
Okay, I don't know what the fuck I was talking about. I love this. It's been a minute since I watched this, so I must have forgotten a few details, but no, that's good. That's great. I love that one. So we open here with a memory of the past, of the High Cloud Quintet, of Dan Heng looking into this memory, looking at the four others as they happily rejoice here. And perhaps blending with that memory, it's his present self, but imagining this memory as he has a cup of his own. And it's so tragic how happy all of them sound here in this memory. The one that is most obviously so is that of Jing Liu, of course. But regardless, he pours out his drink onto the floor here in acknowledgement of this memory, and as he looks up at the statue and prepares to walk away, something about that memory can't leave him. Something about his past lingers. And it takes the form of Dan Feng, of his previous incarnation. And I think this gets down to what some of my initial issues were, was me just not digging into this enough, as it always sort of confused me why this image of Dan Feng was scolding him so much about his past sins, despite him being the one who did those sins. But if I take it less of a literal, this is an embodiment of Dan Feng speaking as they would in real life if they were to get a chance to speak to their next incarnation, but rather as this being an amalgam perception of all of the baggage that Dan Heng has surrounding his past, just in the image of his past incarnation, then it makes a lot more sense to me. As the first word out of Dan Feng's mouth is, "How long will you keep running?" Holding a blade to his throat. And he can't answer that question. He just continues to run. He says, "I have to leave." He's refusing to face the past. We can see that in his expression, as his past self says, "You'll find no refuge among the stars. The high elder succession is as eternal and unyielding as the ancient sea." And at this point, he finally attempts to retort it, but very poorly, saying, "That past is yours, not mine. I'm a different person." But Dan Feng, standing firm, says, "You are my reincarnation. You are me, and therefore, as a mirror image, a reflection of myself, my sins, the sins of a past life, must be repaid in this one by you." It's at this moment where Dan Heng finally draws his blade against his past self, stating, "I'm not you." But I believe that in this moment, this isn't an assertion that he is his own person, but rather a denial of the past. That is what I see this as at this moment. Hence why this entire battle of the mind happens and doesn't fade away at this moment. Once again, unshaken, Dan Feng simply says, "For those who defy our creed and break the succession, death is the only redemption." And at this point, it very much to me is becoming clear that this representation of Dan Feng is much more largely a representation of how Dan Heng sees these sins of the past, of the expectations and beliefs and perceptions of the Xianzhou that he believes are on him, that the sins of his past self are for him to bear as well. And clearly that has weighed on him to the point that in his own mindscape, his past self is saying the only way you can redeem yourself is to die. At which point this battle begins. He rushes forward, attempting to strike down his past, but is unable to, as a rushing wave of water is brought against him, and looming above him is Dan Feng, the representation of his past, who says, "A criminal who shows no sign of remorse deserves no mercy." At which point the dragon is summoned and called down upon Dan Heng, who at this point now has nowhere to run. He cannot escape his past any longer, as he is flung into the depths. And it's as he's pulled down into these depths, sinking deeper, we get these visions of the past. These sins of the past speak to him. His past self is guilty of unpardonable sin, forced to reincarnate and be banished. One punishment that punished Dan Feng, and another that punishes him, his banishment. And then there's all the voices of the people who cared for him, who felt betrayed by his choices, begging for him to do something different, to do something to redeem himself. But what it ends on is someone with vitriol in their voice crying out, saying, "It's all because of you." at which point it fades into complete darkness. He's begun to accept that he deserves to die, to not exist, that he is responsible for all of this. But then, rising to the surface are these bubbles, these breaths of life in his new incarnation. Evidence that he is not the same person, that he is his own person. From today on, he is one of the Express crew. He isn't Dong Feng, he isn't Imbiber Lune, he is Don Hung, a member of the Express. And he gets these images of the people in his life, the people who, in the present, care about him, who would not forsake him. And as he's pulled down and these moments of his current life leave him to return to the surface, he realizes that he isn't ready to let go. He needs to reach out to be with them, to live his own life. It's only here when, rather than fighting against his past, he begins to claw towards the future, does he finally say to his past self, "You're right, you are my past." He's no longer denying that anymore. But though he isn't denying the past anymore, that doesn't change that he won't allow the past, the sins of someone who came before him, to follow him into his future. And it's in this moment that he's able to escape the darkness and enter the light here, free himself from the depths of the ocean, as he asserts that he will blaze a path of his own, asserting that he is a trailblazer, and that is who he is. At which point, emotion finally entering the voice of Don Feng, in a last reactionary retort, simply says it's futile, that it isn't possible to escape his past. But at this point, Dong Hung is resolute. He embraces his past while moving into the future, taking on the Imbiber Lune form, but in his new incarnation, pulling the power of the dragon away from his past self. But rather than striking down his past, he merely moves past it, moving on. The clouds and rain of the past come down on the two of them, obscuring everything. But then, once it has subsided, they're met with light, as his past self takes a deep breath and sighs, and accepts the choices of his future, accepts that Dong Hung is his own person, and says, "Go then, leave, and don't look back. Now that you have accepted your past, you do not need to linger on it anymore. It does not need to hold you down." And in that sense, Don Feng fades away, leaving just Don Hung. And realizing this, he closes his eyes with a slight smile on his face. More positive emotion than we've pretty much ever seen from him. At which point, though, he's snapped out of it by, of course, March. Classic March, ruining the moment, but you know, it's fine, as we get brought into the present again. He has dealt with the past, and he returns to the present, to the people around him, to his normal self, as he goes along with March's ridiculousness, but refuses to smile, because he's not going to force that. At which point, Welt, who is easily the most perceptive of all of them, asks if he's alright, recognizes that something was going on. He doesn't say if he is or not, he just says that he was reminiscing. But I would like to believe that after this, he is a little bit better off. And of course, March, who doesn't fully understand what's going on, is like, "Oh, you were reminiscing about what? Come on, tell me." Very classic for her. At which point, though, Welt, understanding more, says, "Just let him be, March." And that is where it is left. It is simultaneously a resolution and not. It is an acknowledgement that the sins of his past self will forever follow him into his present, but that he doesn't need to be defined by them, that he can be his own person and live his own life. And as long as he accepts that, he'll be fine. And I love that. To compare to the previous short, where the previous one is this deeply sad and tragic tale of a cycle that cannot be broken. This is a far more hopeful one, of a assertion and belief that things can be different, things can change, the past does not tie us down. And I love that. Past me was so fucking wrong, I have no idea what they were talking about. But with that, let's move on. Now we have Harmony Greets the New Year. This one I've seen much less, so we'll see what I have to say about it, but it'll probably be a lot less than the others because this is a much simpler one in a lot of ways, so let's just get into it. I actually don't remember most of this, so I'm curious to see what's gonna happen in it.
Is this?
It's what the Xianzhou people use in their traditional dance. Dragon's form and lion's likeness. Put them on. You two will be performing shortly.
You'll see, little boy. Let's go!
Wait a minute. Let me give them some eyes first. That's what brings them to life. All right, on with it.
This is really fun.
Everyone! Dragons and lions,
I love all the little character cameos.
So give us a cheer. It's time for some fun. The show has begun.
The Jade Gate shines in brilliant solar might.
I forgot that it went into this, like, paintbrushy style.
Are bathed in light. Toward the sun, the dragon starts to soar. As
This looks so
echoing through
fucking
the
good.
clouds, the lions roar. Great rains the dragon shaketh from the skies. As tearing through the lands, the lion flies. Both wind and rain imbue the mountain air. The one without the other, half as fair. In evil's grasp, the Xianzhou starts to quake. The land submerged in turgid evil's wake. Throughout the delves are felt the scars of war.
I forgot how amazing this
There
looks.
sands and more. The dragon, now deprived of water's home. The lion, weak from battle, all alone. Outnumbered in the order 10 to 1. How then is the battle to be won? Yet dragon, lion, both return to fight. The battle shared in memory, burning bright. In evil vanquished lies tomorrow's turn, from which we reap the joy.
The music is so fucking good.
Pride and mirth.
And we just see all the characters. That's fun. So I was right that it's a lot more simple and straightforward than the others, but I forgot how nice it was. I'm realizing a trend, which is I forgot how good all of these are. I find it fun that it's like very much the sort of New Year's traditional celebratory stuff, like Chinese celebration stuff. Of course, it's these two that are performing. I really like a lot of this little bits of animation going on. The animation's always amazing, but I like that we then just see a few of the people living their lives. I like that Dan Heng is here. He's being around the Xianzhou now that he actually can. And my god, so much rhyming going on. But as the performance begins, we jump into this paintbrush style that just looks fucking amazing and is so absurdly fluid. I love it. As this story of a dragon and a lion, which fight against evil, I guess. All of this animation-wise is amazing, and it's done really well. I like it a lot. All of this animation is amazing. It takes up most of this. But then we get this moment where, in this darkest hour in the story, we have Gwenhyfen falling off and almost crashing into the ground, but she's caught by Su Shang, who is not able to pull her up on her own strength. At which point, we have this moment of tension, realizing the circumstances that we're in. She almost falls. Jingyuan prepares to do something, but Dan Heng gets to it first, it would seem, creating a platform for her to stand on to be able to get back onto the pedestal. At which point, after making sure that the footing is sound, we return back to the story for the valiant climax of it all, where the lion and dragon succeed and defeat the evil. At which point, with the end of the performance, there's this moment of pause as they catch their breath. Everyone's in awe for a moment, but then break out into celebration. We see all the characters. A little kid offers some food to Dan Heng, real cute, and then we return to the two of them as they just smile and laugh, having put on a good performance. It's fun. I like it. Like I said, it's a lot more simple than the others, but I think that's fine. We don't need all of them to be this amazingly complex and complicated thing that you can spend an hour talking about. Sometimes it can just be fun. So with that, gonna move on to the next one. Now we have Rondo across countless continents. As I was saying, not all of them need to be incredibly complex and sad and tragic. Sometimes they can be just awesome and sexy and weird. So just gonna get into it, because let's be honest, this is my favorite, I think. This is my favorite of the shorts, I'd say. So let's get into it.
The remembrance is no different than the sea. Never gaze upon its surface on a starless night.
Beginning with a comparison with this blood-red sea. As we enter our scene.
Waiting for someone.
The pacing of the initial bit here is really interesting to me.
Then,
the tone overall
how about
as
a
well.
dance?
And then the music begins.
My gaze has lingered on her for quite a while.
This entire
Tonight,
dance is
I
absurd.
initiate our first engagement. A Galaxy Ranger, as mysterious as the rumors suggest. A blend of nobility and reticence.
So good.
Yet, in this nocturnal hunt, the Ranger is not the only one who hunts. At this distance, you're more enchanting.
The way the music flows and the dance goes is just so amazing and fluid.
Without a doubt, she seeks the Watchmaker's legacy. In this game, everyone lies. But memories do not.
The continuing rise in the energy of this is so good.
Just keeps on getting better, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Everyone has a past, and the past shapes the present. Some people hold on to memories, while others are haunted by them, unable to escape.
Oh my god, okay.
That is why I took action.
This moment of tension.
I want to know what she is.
Jesus.
Many were drawn to this feast. The IPC, the Garden
We have the
Recollection,
build.
Fools, the Nameless, and the Annihilation.
As we finally get to the point.
They should have been present, but Duke Inferno is dead.
Ugh.
He and his children won't be attending. What have you done, beautiful Ranger?
And then we get a glimpse. A mere glimpse of what is within Acheron.
Are you asking me?
As she speaks for the first time, and everything changes. The entire tone is suddenly horror. As this no longer is a dance between two equals trying to suss each other out, but a hunt. God, the music and visuals. Then we return to reality. Black Swan bit off more than she could chew.
Who are the Annihilation Gang?
My gaze
And then
has
we
lingered
return.
on her for quite a while. And tonight is our final engagement. The Galaxy Ranger. No. I've made a grave mistake. Everyone has a past. But for some, their past is a silent abyss, filled with those who drowned in it.
Oh.
Annihilation Gang. Annihilation Gang. Oh. Those guys.
Oh. Can you tell I love this? Yeah, this is my favorite. For as good as the others are, this one is my favorite. So I'm gonna try to not gush too much, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So, to return to the start, we have this imagery of a dark blood-red sea as we get Black Swan's narrating, saying, "The remembrance is no different than the sea. Never gaze upon its surface on a starless night." But we don't get anything beyond that, just this comparison, that it is dangerous to look too deep into memories when you have no light to guide you. At which point we enter the scene, we fade in as we have Black Swan approaching Acheron, having this plan to draw her in, to feel her out, to try to figure out what she's about, corner her to figure something out about her. At which point, asking if she's waiting for someone, Acheron just shakes her head, and Black Swan offers a dance. There's this moment of pause where Acheron clearly considers what she should do, but in the end decides to take her hand, and they move onto the dance floor. Even just the way that their feet move is really interesting. The way that Black Swan drags her feet, pulling herself backward, pulling Acheron along with her. And in these initial bits of the dance, clearly signaling that she is the leader in this dance. She's the one controlling the momentum and the movement and the flow. As we get her internal dialogue, saying, "My gaze has lingered on her for quite a while, and tonight I initiate our first engagement." Signaling how she's viewing this. This is a planned encounter, an engagement, a galaxy ranger, in quotes. She recognizes that Acheron is not what she appears to be, and she wants to find out what's below the surface. As mysterious as rumors suggest, she wants to answer that mystery. A blend of nobility and reticence, yet in this nocturnal hunt, bringing up the idea that it is a hunt. The ranger is not the only one who hunts, implying that she is hunting Acheron, that Acheron is in her sights as her prey. How wrong can she be? But for now, her confidence is there, and Acheron has not given her a reason to doubt that. As throughout this, there are all of these actions and motions of Black Swan signaling her confidence and power in this interaction. At which point we have her speaking to Acheron, flirting almost, saying, "At this distance, you're more enchanting than you seem." On one level, it is a compliment, flirting. On another level, it is her picking up details, things she had not yet noticed about her, piecing together the puzzle that is Acheron in her mind. This dance is a way for her to figure that out. The dance picks up, they move more dramatically, everything fades away until it's just them. Without a doubt, she seeks the Watchmaker's legacy. She does not doubt that that is her reason for being here, because in this game, everyone lies, but memories do not. And thus, Black Swan is in a unique position. As a member of the Garden of Recollection, she can look into those memories. She can see past the lies to the truth of the scenario, and in this dance she intends to do so with Acheron. He once again prods at Acheron, perhaps trying to get her to speak, to get her to say something that will give away anything. As she says, just keeps getting better, doesn't it? As the entire dance continues to build. At which point, we then get this amazing sequence of an overhead shot of them dancing as the stars coalesce into imagery, some of which I recognized, other bits not so much. But as we do, we have Black Swan continuing, saying, "Everyone has a past, and the past shapes the present." As we have this image of Acheron moving through a crowd, perhaps. I don't believe this is any notable moment I am aware of, but it then fades into a place with what looks like a soldier, perhaps holding a gun, aimed at Acheron, perhaps someone she has killed or who is fearful of her, of what they have seen she is capable of. An image of her in the night, atop a hillside perhaps, with Black Swan continuing to say, "Some people hold on to memories, while others are haunted by them, unable to escape." And I don't think it's a coincidence that as that is said, we get this image of Acheron with a friend, a Galaxy Ranger, already passed on, but someone who she is here to uphold an agreement, a vow for, her reason for being here. Black Swan is getting to it here. but doesn't see the full picture yet. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we see this here, given that being haunted and unable to escape the past and the memories is in many ways the truth of the scenario here that we get this glimpse of. At which point we end the star visions and we get the assertion from Black Swan that that is why she took action. She wants to know what she is. She's not a Galaxy Ranger, so what is she? And so she begins to list all of the people who have come and intend to. Many were drawn to this feast. The IPC, the Garden of Recollection, Fools, the Nameless, listing all of the major players until she lands on where she thinks she can catch Acheron, and the Annihilation Gang. They should have been present, but Duke Inferno is dead. He and his children won't be attending. What have you done, beautiful Ranger? Finally putting her cards down on the table, confronting Acheron. She's no longer poking and prodding, she's just going straight for the target, which perhaps she thinks could work. But it's here where she gets a glimpse of the reality of the situation, and she touches on something she should not have touched. We see the death of Duke Inferno, and a vision of what Acheron truly is, as she finally speaks, saying, "Excuse me, are you asking me?" And immediately Acheron takes full control of the scenario, seizing all power away from Black Swan as Black Swan tries to escape this, realizing she's in out of her depth, but she can't escape. She's already been caught in the pull of the nihility. She's pulled and torn apart by Acheron. As the dance continues, Acheron now in control, as she frays at the seams with every movement, trying to escape, but Acheron pulls her back every time, with imagery of dead swans in the background, a sign of what is to come for Black Swan in the future. Someday, at least, a snake killing a swan. And as we get the image of the dead bird, we suddenly shift to other animals, to various signs of the cycle of death. Prey chased by predators of all kinds, the inescapable end of all things that is death, finally making its way up to the true oblivion, the black hole, and into this spiral, attempting to escape, desperately reaching out. Black Swan gets caught in it and is torn asunder by it, only to finally be let free of that vision with the end of the dance. She's exhausted, out of breath, unsure what she just experienced, terrified by it, but unshaken, as if nothing had happened. Acheron merely asks, "Who are the Annihilation Gang?" as if she doesn't know. And then we move back out. The dance is done, and Black Swan thinks about what she has learned and realizes her mistake. Her gaze has lingered on Acheron for quite a while, repeating that phrase, but tonight is our final engagement. It was our first and our final. If she can help it, she will not cross paths with this signal of oblivion. Galaxy Ranger? No, she's made a grave mistake, at which point she asserts again, everyone has a past. But for some, that past is a silent abyss, filled with those who drowned it. As the sky turns red like the sea from the beginning, as bodies sink down from above. But Acheron, her shadow looming large, just walks unperturbed. At which point, we shift directly to Acheron, as she ponders the name, Annihilation Gang. Who were they? Has she met them? Did she kill them? After a moment, he realizes, yes, I killed those guys. Not that long ago either. But, oh well, it's of no importance to her, and that is where we are left. An emanator of nihility who moves through the universe, destroying and killing, leaving nothing in her wake, as if it is nothing. Now, of course, there is more to her than just that, but to Black Swan, who is getting just this slight glimpse into what she truly is, she is a monster, with no remorse. It's so good. It's fucking amazing. And, I mean, you can probably tell from the way that I went through this, that I think this sort of speaks for itself. This is this just beautiful, naturally flowing, amazing dance that is essentially a continuous flowing power play of dominance and loss of dominance and control and lost control. It's so good! It's so good that I can't, like, reasonably talk about it without just gushing. This is where I truly bought in to Acheron as a character, and she became one of my favorites in the entire game. Anything else I say, I think will just be gushing, so I'll move on to the next one. And now, we're back to depression. We have the Embers of Glamoth. I've actually already reacted to this one. I have a reaction to it in a separate video that I did when it first came out. Feel free to check that out if you're interested to see my full thoughts. Because I already did that, I'm going to probably be a lot more succinct with this one and just sort of move through it quickly. But regardless, let's get into it. This one is so fucking good.
Command! Firefly requesting reinforcements!
I love how everything layers here to just be utter chaos.
Requesting reinforcements! I repeat, requesting reinforcements!
I also love the mix of animation here. The start of this entire thing always gives me chills. It does such a good job of showing how desperate of a last stand this is. They do such a good job of showing the scale of all of this. Like, that is absurd. I remember when I first watched this, I thought that was an emanator.
Whoever's still alive, cover me! I'm going for the swarm mother! Copy! Take it! What's this? Activate it when you see the signal!
There are so many fucking amazing shots in this. The amount of dedication that the Glamoth cavalry had is absurd. But I guess it was bred into them. I love the choice to make all of the dead be out of their armor.
Dead. Who died? Honor of Glamoth's other cavalry. Or Her Majesty. Why do we die? Why do we live?
This always gets me.
For Glamoth! For the Empress!
But Glamoth no longer exists. I dreamed of a scorched earth. A new shoot sprouted from the
music
earth.
coming in here is perfect.
It bloomed in the morning sun and whispered to me,
transformation. And thus was the end of Glamoth. And yet somehow she endures.
Fireflies dancing among the stars.
Jesus. I don't know if it's just because going back to back on these is putting me in a heightened emotional state, but God, that hits. Alright, while I'm still able to speak, just gotta real quick touch on some things. I'm not gonna go line by line because I effectively did that in my initial reaction, but I love how chaotic the opening is. I love how, despite standing upon a pile of bodies already, there is countless enemies still surrounding her. She continues to fight. An ally, a fellow cavalry knight, supports her, tells her to get on her feet as they go forward, joining their comrades in this final battle, attempting to achieve something as we just get the scale of what's going on. The sheer odds they're up against. A handful of knights against countless swarm, one by one being picked off, in such a desperate scenario that they can't even have time to acknowledge that. The death of one of their allies is something they have to just ignore. Two of the last surviving few decide upon a plan, a last-ditch effort, sacrificing their own lives to destroy just a fraction of the forces. More are to come later. But before I continue through it more, I'd like to just acknowledge how interesting it is how, in this initial half, during the battle itself, we get these glimpses within the armor for Firefly, where we can hear her instead of her mech voice, but we don't get that for anyone else. And outside of the mechs, they all have the same voice. They all, despite having slightly different mech designs, are just clones, identical, disposable. But then, in the last moments of this one, the voice changes to be a bit different as they've torn off part of their mask. And just desperately, they give out the battle cry of For Her Majesty, trying to hold on for the reason they're doing that as they sacrifice their life. Faceless soldiers, built to be disposable. But now, in the sea of bodies, we can see that they're all different. They're all individuals. Or were, rather. They're dead now. Only now, when they're dead and gone, do we see the differences. Do we see the true tragedy of everything that has been lost. And those who survive, one of which desperately holds on to the reason why they were fighting, trying to justify all of this death. But Firefly begins to question. Now that it's too late to save anyone, she questions, why do we die? Why do we live? And thrumming in her head is the one answer that was given to her ever. You live and die for Glamoth, for the Empress. But at this point, that answer doesn't mean anything. It holds no ground. Glamoth no longer exists. So why do they fight for something that is gone? There's no point in that. And as she realizes this, she cries and recites some words. I'm not sure where she heard them from, but she recites some words of scorched earth and a blooming sun, whispering to her, like fireflies to a flame, life begets death. And it's with this that she taps into a power beyond herself. In the acknowledgement of this futility, of this tragedy, she soars forward, facing her end, facing oblivion, without giving up, fighting to the end, until there is truly nothing left. The planet is gone, the swarm on it are gone, Glamoth is gone, the Empress is gone, everyone is gone. And yet, that very same power that allows her to truly end things also enables her to endure and be found by the Stellarons. And however flawed a home it is, to have a new home amongst them. I remember when I first watched this, you can see it in the reaction, I was very defensive of Firefly here and very antagonistic towards Kafka, because my first thought here was that Kafka, using the script Elio has given her, came here knowing that Firefly would survive and could be recruited in a moment of vulnerability, and feared that they were taking advantage of Firefly in that moment. But having seen the story unfold and see that they seem to all care for each other to some degree, and that Firefly seems happy amongst them, at least as much as she can be, I have to sort of pull that back and instead be a bit more thankful that because of Kafka and the Stellaron Hunters, Firefly wasn't left floating through space with nothing. God, this fucks me up. This shit fucks me up. Alright, so it can't fuck me up any further. Let's go to something more happy like the next one. Now we get to Taking It Easy, a much more recent short, which I have had a much more recent reaction to. Because of that, I'm going to be even more quick about this. I'm pretty much just going to go through it and then point out a thing or two that I learned after the fact, basically. Once again, check out my original reaction if you're interested. So, let's finish this out. This is the final one after all. I absolutely love the framing of this with the split perspective to the two generals. The music's also just really fun. It gives me the vibes of some of the early promotional trailers. This does just a great job of showing the difference in their days, of their mornings, how they start the day. I also like the continuing returning to what time it is. The typeface is a bit whack, though. It resulted in me getting it wrong in the original one at one point. It does a good job of not overcomplicating what's going on in both sides at any given time. It typically has one be where the action is happening. But then we shift to here. This is just fun. This entire teaser is, but this entire short rather is fun. Don't know why I called it a teaser. I love JoJo just being there. I love the music as well. I love how fast this makes her feel. I love that she's even seeing this almost in slow motion. I love the clock sounds. Hell yeah. It's a real fun one. A great thing to end on, honestly. It's a lot nicer to end on than something as depressing as the last one. So, just gonna really quick touch on a few things. As I said, I really love the framing of this, the split perspective showing us the difference in the mornings between Feixiao and Jingyuan, showing how different they can be, interesting differences in breakfasts, as we get the perspective of, okay, she needs to get there, but she's all the way over here, and it just pans through the city. But she's fast. She just moves in an instant and is gone, with Jiaoqiu left in the dust behind her. But clearly used to this, so not particularly perturbed. As, to correct my past mistakes, in the previous one, I believe this is where I thought this said 9:50, but it's actually 9:58. So where before I was like, oh, she only has 10 minutes. No, she only has 2 minutes to be there on time, which is even more dramatic. The idea that she can cover that distance in that time. but they show her speed really well, show how fast she can cross the entire city, but she gets distracted because there's a crime going on. Someone is causing chaos, so she happily jumps in to stop it. At which point she lands, we get the sound of a ticking clock, and then we get these cool backgrounds as she's helping the entire scenario all over the place with something that I didn't realize in my initial viewing, but someone pointed out in the comments. We have the countdown until 10 in the background, starting at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we get this cool build in the music as it is basically nothing but hitting those beats of the time counting down. But it sort of begins to ramp up right near the last few numbers. As when she strikes the guy and it hits 0 on the countdown, the clock turns to 10:01. She's late. At which point it just cuts out the rest of her journey and shows her arrived, and at which point they just have some banter as suddenly it gets revealed, oh, she got here before this guy could land from being hit by her. She sent him flying so hard that he landed here from wherever he was, but she was fast enough to get here and have a brief chat before he landed, which is just amazing. This short is very much just a fun showing of Feixiao as a character, how playful she can be, how powerful she is, how fast she is, that kind of thing. It's a simultaneous showing of her power and her playful side, which is just great. I love it. But I'm going to leave it there. Anything more than that, and I'd just be repeating completely what I was saying in my original reaction. So with that, I'll leave it there. That was the last one. I was originally intending to do the Moments Among the Stars alongside this, because Hoyoverse has them all in the same playlist, but I quickly realized that I was talking way too long for that to be reasonable, so I'll do those in another video soon. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see future ones. Leave a comment on your thoughts, and I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.